I've been in real estate for 32 years, and in that time, I have learned one thing above almost everything else. The national headlines and your local market are very often telling two completely different stories. And right now, that gap is wider than usual. So today, I want to walk you through and unpack both sides of that story so you know exactly where things really stand. Here's what we're covering. First, what's actually happening in the housing market nationally right now, straight from the newest data. Second, a mortgage strategy that more buyers should be putting on the table, adjustable rate mortgages, and why a 10-year adjustable might be smarter than most people assume. And third, I'm going to show you exactly why real estate is hyperlocal, using what we're seeing right here in Bergen County compared to the rest of the country. Some homes are getting multiple offers over the asking price. Other homes, sometimes just down the block, are sitting for weeks with no movement at all. I'll tell you exactly what separates the two and what that means for you, whether you're buying or selling. Let's get into it. Let's start with the national picture, because this is where most buyers and sellers form their opinions about the market, and honestly, it can lead you astray if you don't understand the full context behind the numbers. Housing Wire just published their mid-August data, and here's what it shows. Nationally, housing inventory sits at 871,063 homes. That's up 5,354 homes from just the prior week. Year over year, that's growth of only 1.28%. So yes, inventory is edging higher, but barely. This is not a flood of homes hitting the market. It's a slow, steady drip. And it has been a fairly quiet, uneventful year for inventory overall, even with rates where they are. Mortgage rates are a big part of the story. The 30-year fixed rate is sitting at 6.83%, actually down 6 basis points recently. Here's the threshold that matters. Historically, buyer demand tends to soften whenever rates climb above 6.64%. We're above that line right now, and that helps explain some of the cooling we're seeing. At the same time, rates are still being held under 7% because mortgage spreads have improved. They're at 1.99%, and that's helping keep a lid on things even with the Feds and bond market. Doing what they're doing, new listings are actually in their typical seasonal decline right now, which happens every single year. And as we move forward toward the fall, and pending sales have ticked down slightly year over year, 65,202 this year, compared to 67,215 at the same point last year. Purchase applications are down about 1% year over year, and that makes 3 straight weeks of negative prints after a stretch of 25 positive weeks earlier this year. Price cuts are sitting at just 42% of listings, which is essentially flat compared to last year. So what does all of this add up to? A market that's cooling modestly at the national level. Not crashing, not booming, just softening a touch as elevated rates keep some buyers on the sidelines heading into the fall and winter months. Most forecasters watching this data are expecting that same modest gradual pattern to carry us into 2027. No dramatic shift in either direction, just a slow grind as long as rates stay roughly in this range. And that word, national, is exactly why I want you to be careful about drawing conclusions from your own street from it, what's happening across the country as a whole is very often not what's happening in your specific neighborhood. I'll come back to that in a few minutes because it matters enormously here in Bergen County. Now let's talk about something I think more buyers need to seriously understand right now, and that's the adjustable rate mortgage, or they call it the ARM, A-R-M, adjustable rate mortgage. Go straight back to 2008, and they picture some unpredictable loan spirals completely out of control. That is not what we're talking about today. Today's ARMs, structured, regulated, and underwritten very differently than what we saw during that era. In the right situation, an ARM can be one of the smartest tools in the buyer's toolbox. Here's how it actually works. An ARM gives you a fixed interest rate for an initial period, and you get to choose how long that period is. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years, or 10 years. During that entire window, your rate does not move. It behaves exactly like a traditional fixed rate mortgage. The difference only shows up once that initial period comes to an end. Right now, a 10-year adjustable rate mortgage is pricing meaningfully below the standard 30-year fixed. That's amazing. We're seeing 10-year adjustable rates in roughly the 6.5% range compared to 6.83% on a 30-year fixed. On a jumbo loan, it's even less. We have less rates on jumbo loans, which covers a lot of homes here in Bergen County. We have a lot of luxury homes, and that gap can be even wider. That difference translates directly into real dollars, a lower monthly payment starting from your very first mortgage bill. So here's the strategy, and this is the part I really want you to sit with. You lock in a lower rate for a full decade. 10 years is a long time, and for most homeowners, that's long enough to sell, relocate, pay down significant principal, or refinance into a new fixed-rate loan whenever the market shifts in your favor. And when your ARM does eventually reach its adjustable period, it doesn't float wherever the market wind blows. It's protected by rate caps, an initial adjustable cap that limits the very first change, a subsequent adjustment cap for future changes, and a lifetime cap that puts a hard ceiling on how much your rate can ever rise over the entire life of the loan. Now let's talk about something I think more buyers need to seriously understand right now, and that's the adjustable rate mortgage, or they call it the ARM, A-R-M, adjustable rate mortgage. Go straight back to 2008, and they picture some unpredictable loan spirals completely out of control. That is not what we're talking about today. Today's ARMs, structured, regulated, and underwritten very differently than what we saw during that era. In the right situation, an ARM can be one of the smartest tools in the buyer's toolbox. Here's how it actually works. An ARM gives you a fixed interest rate for an initial period, and you get to choose how long that period is. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years, or 10 years. During that entire window, your rate does not move. It behaves exactly like a traditional fixed-rate mortgage. The difference only shows up once that initial period comes to an end. Right now, a 10-year adjustable rate mortgage is pricing meaningfully below the standard 30-year fixed. That's amazing. We're seeing 10-year adjustable rates in roughly the 6.5% range compared to 6.83% on a 30-year fixed. On a jumbo loan, it's even less. We have less rates on jumbo loans, which covers a lot of homes here in Bergen County. We have a lot of luxury homes, and that gap can be even wider. That difference translates directly into real dollars, a lower monthly payment starting from your very first mortgage bill. So here's the strategy, And this is the part I really want you to sit with. You lock in a lower rate for a full decade. 10 years is a long time, and for most homeowners, that's long enough to sell, relocate, pay down significant principal, or refinance into a new fixed-rate loan whenever the market shifts in your favor. And when your ARM does eventually reach its adjustable period, it doesn't float wherever the market wind blows. It's protected by rate caps, an initial adjustable cap that limits the very first change, a subsequent adjustment cap for future changes, and a lifetime cap that puts a hard ceiling on how much your rate can ever rise over the entire life of the loan. Those numbers are spelled out in your loan documents before you ever sign. Let me make that concrete for a second. On a $700,000 loan, the difference between 6.83% and 6.5% work out, and that's only a little bit, work out to be $200 to $300 in monthly savings, just from choosing the right loan structure. Over 10 years before you could even factor in refinancing opportunities, that adds up to tens of thousands of dollars back in your pocket. This is where I tell my clients, you are not locking yourself into 10 years of uncertainty. You're buying yourself a decade of lower payment with real built-in protection and the flexibility to refinance along the way if and when rates come down. Rates move in cycles. They always have and they always will. A 10-year adjustable rate lets you take advantage of today's pricing without committing to today's rates forever. Now, I want to be clear. An adjustable rate mortgage is not the right fit for everyone, not for every single buyer. If you know for a fact that you'll be in the home for 30 years and rate certainly matters most to you, a fixed rate may still be your best choice. But if you're the kind of buyer who moves, refinances, reassesses every several years, you may be paying for certainty you were never going to use. That's a conversation to have with a trusted licensed loan officer who can run your exact numbers, your exact loan amount, and your exact goals. But if you've been sitting on the sidelines because a 30-year fixed rate feels too high, this is absolutely worth exploring before you rule yourself out of the market. Now, here's the part I really want you to hear, because it's the piece that gets lost in almost every real estate national headline. Real estate is hyperlocal. It always has been, and right now, that's more true than it has been in years. In today's market, I am watching two very different things happen. Sometimes on the very same street, in the very same week, some homes are getting multiple offers, closing well over the asking price, and other homes, sometimes just a few doors down, are sitting on the market for weeks with no offers at all. Same neighborhood, same school district, same general price. So what actually separates the two? It comes down to two things: what the home offers and how it's priced. The homes that fly off the market are the ones that check nearly every box for today's buyers. Updated kitchen, move-in ready condition, functional modern layout, good light, good bones, good location, and critically, they are priced strategically, just slightly below what the true market value is, actually supports. And now that might sound counterintuitive, why would a seller price under market value on purpose? Well, here's why exactly that it works. When a home is priced a little under the market, it creates urgency. Buyers see the value immediately, and instead of one offer trickling in over several weeks, you get multitude of buyers competing for the same home at the same time. And when you have multiple buyers competing against each other, that competition is what pushes the final sale price above the original asking price, very often landing well above where a higher aspirational list price would have ever ended up. I've seen this play out over and over again with our own listings. Well-priced homes strategically hold showings for a weekend, come back with 6, 8, sometimes more offers on the table, well above list. Meanwhile, the nearly identical home down the block, down the street, blocks away, priced 2 or 3% higher because the seller didn't want to leave money on the table, sits for 6 weeks and doesn't get multiple offers and doesn't go over asking. That's the other side of this. Almost always when a home sits, it's one of two things. The home needs work, the price doesn't reflect, or it's priced aspirationally based on what the seller hopes it's worth rather than what the data actually supports. Those homes accumulate days on market. Buyers start to wonder, what's wrong with it? Even if nothing is actually wrong with it. And eventually the seller ends up chasing the market downward with price reductions. Anyway, nationally, we're seeing right around 42% listings take a price cut at some point before they sell. That's not the position I want any of my sellers to end up with. The lesson here is simple, and it's one I've built my entire 32-year career on. Strategic pricing beats aspirational pricing every single time. A home priced right, presented beautifully, and marketed properly will create its own competition. That is how you get over asking price in this market. Not by starting high and hoping someone bites, but by pricing smart and letting genuine buyer demand do the work for you. So let's bring this home literally. Let's talk about the Bergen County, New Jersey local market. Right now, it looks nothing like that of the national cooling story I opened with. Nationally, remember, we talked about inventory edging up slightly, demand softening a touch, and elevated rates keeping some buyers on the sidelines. Well, here in Bergen County, single-family homes are selling at a median price of $946,000. That's up 7 points, 3% year over year. Homes are averaging just 28 days on market, and sellers on average are getting 105.5% on their list price. Let me say that again, because it matters. Homes here are selling on average above asking price, not below it. Why is that happening? Because we simply do not have enough inventory to meet demand. There are only about 1,066 active single-family homes on the market across the entire county right now. That works out to roughly 2.5 months of supply. To put that in perspective, 6 months of supply is considered a balanced market between buyers and sellers. 2.5 months in a deep seller's market inventory, that is completely different environment than what the national headlines are describing. And it's true, whether we're talking about towns closer to the George Washington Bridge or further out toward the New York State. Now, it's not one size fits all, even within our own county. Townhomes and condos are telling a slightly different story. Median price around $575,000, 39 days on market, and a bit more inventory available. That segment is more balanced, offering a little more breathing room for buyers who are open to that lifestyle or who are being priced out of the single-family market. So here's my message if you've been reading the national news and thinking, maybe I should wait. That may be true in some parts of the country right now. It's not necessarily true here. If you're a seller in Bergen County with a well-presented, well-priced single-family home, you are still very likely to see multiple offers and a sale above asking. And if you're a buyer waiting on the sidelines, hoping for a flood of inventory and falling prices, here locally, that's simply not what our local data is showing us. This is exactly why you need someone who lives inside the hyperlocal numbers every single day, not just the national headlines. So let's bring this all together. Nationally, the market is cooling slightly. Inventory tickling up just a touch, rates keeping some buyers cautious, demand softening, modestly heading into fall. Mortgage strategy matters more than ever in this environment. A 10-year adjustable rate mortgage can meaningfully lower your payment today while keeping your options open for years down the road. And most importantly, real estate is hyper local. Here in Bergen County, we are still very much in a seller's market for well-priced, well-presented single-family homes under a month on the market and selling above asking price on average. If you're thinking about buying, let's have a real conversation about what your financing options are, including whether or not an ARM makes sense for your specific goals and timeline. If you're thinking about selling, let's talk about pricing your home strategically, not aspirationally, so we create genuine competition and get you the strongest possible outcome, not just the fastest one. I've spent 32 years building the Paula Clark Group into a team that's top 1% nationwide, closing homes a year, 100 homes a year with $75 million in sales. People on my team are dedicated to finding you the right home and selling your home for the highest price possible.